Hey everybody, so welcome back to my review of GobFest, and this time we're looking at day two. So, GobFest is the board game convention that I attended last month in Edmonton, Alberta. And day two was a full day. So, it started at 9 in the morning and it went on till midnight. So, it was just a packed day. It was great. First game we ended up playing was Cottage Garden because Carla noticed that it was in the auction that day and she was debating whether she wanted it. So we played it just to kind of see what we thought of it, and it was interesting. It's this is part of a trilogy. Like there's summer, geez, summer. Yeah, I forget what they're called now. So there's three of them. I had the summer one, and I wasn't super thrilled with it. It was great. You had all these things that you kind of polyomino pieces you added to your board, and depending on what you covered up, you gained berries and all these things, and you could spend those to do different things. But it was a race game, so whoever filled their board at the end of the game triggered the end of the game and won. Um, and it just felt like at the end there should be like, okay, well now we score or something. Like it just so I didn't keep that game, but we ended up playing this one, Cottage Garden. And this one also is where you have polyomino pieces that you can draw. And what was really interesting is you have this main board that has like was a 4x4 grid, and each square has a piece on it, and you can only select a piece that's from where the you got like this dice that goes around this board, and on your turn, whatever the dice is on, like that's the row you can pick a piece from. It's be like, that one would be perfect, but I have to look at this one. And then you'll kind of grab one, but then it goes around and the board doesn't refill until it's down to a certain amount, or there's less than two on a row. So it was like, oh, okay, well, when it comes my turn, I'll be there. I could use that one, but it was around then and they ended up using it. So it was interesting in that way for sure. And you're putting this in your garden, and this is what the garden looks like. And then there's potted, like little pots in there, and then those actually score points. So you don't really want to cover those up if you don't have to. Um, it was interesting. We most definitely played this one wrong. Because at some point they're like, okay, now you select your garden that you want to do this on, and then you kind of go down to one garden. And well, we never set it up that you could have more than one garden, so we don't know how you would have multiple garden. We never did. So we weren't. There was something we weren't doing right. It was okay. It's cute. It's relaxing. The artwork, like it's a neat game to look at. It's not one that is thrilling to me, and I kind of was like, okay, I must own this one. But it was okay. Then we played Creature Comforts. This one is a fairly new game that's out. I guess the designer's from Alberta, so that was cool. And this game is beautiful. Like you have all these print screen minis, wooden bits, minis, yeah, like your little wooden bits. And then I was the squirrel when I played this one. And you have two dice that you would roll, and then you use your meeple to kind of decide which area you want to activate, because this is a worker placement game. So you put your meeple on the different actions you want to activate. Now you don't have where, oh, you've went there, so now I can't. Yeah, you can. And everybody does this at the same time. And then you roll the village dice, which is a dice that everybody would use. So there's four of those. So you roll those four then. And then where you've got your meeple, you can activate those spaces by kind of dedicating dice to those space. Now, some spaces, like, okay, if you have two dice that equals 7 or less, then you can activate this thing. And then maybe like you'd roll, okay, well, I rolled a 3 and a 5. That's too much, but maybe when I roll the village dice, there'll be a dice I can utilize that would allow me to do that. So I'm going to try to activate that space, and then you roll the dice, and maybe you can't. So then, if you can't assign any dice there. You're not going to be doing that action. You'll look at your other meeple, but you can assign more than one dice at a location and activate that location multiple times. It was really interesting. I found the one drawback with this one is the downtime as you take turn kind of utilizing the village dice and activating your can be a little bit long. And we played this one 5 players. But the whole thing is so pretty. It's very neat. And I really enjoyed it. And then the tokens and the containers that it came with, like this game is so well produced. It is beautiful. This one here is like the first player marker the early bird gets the worm. So if you're first player, you get the worm. Like the whole thing is just so adorable. I've played this one a few times since because we ended up everybody at the table was like, oh my god, we want this game, and they ended up like calling all the different game store in Edmonton while we were there, and then there was one that was just a block away and they had copies. So Ashley ended up going over, a friend that we were there with, and she bought a copy. Then Cherry went and she bought two copies, one for me, one for her. So we like everybody at the table ended up going and buy a copy. So, but yeah, it was really neat. It's super adorable. I've played it a few times since at home with my stepdaughter, and she loves it. I still get that it has a lot of downtime, but like it's just such a cute game otherwise that's like my one flaw on it. After that, we played Libertalia, The Winds of Galecrest, that was just created by Stonemaier Games. This game is very pretty again. Like Stonemaier Games, I love the games and the way they produce them. They always are great looking games with great components. And this one, you're pirates, and it's interesting. Like the mechanism are really interesting, and I don't know how it compares to the original Libertalia game, but one player will kind of draw cards that randomly cards from this big deck that's going to show which card you're going to be utilizing. And we all have the same deck, so we'll be bringing these out. And you take turns playing a card along the top row, and it goes into numerical order, and then you activate one card at a time. Now it could be that the first card makes the one card in the back go away, and then that card is gone, and you kind of activate these cards, do what it says on there, and then you will collect, because there's tiles that comes available every round, and then whoever's left kind of will take turn collecting those tiles as well and putting that in the like they're the treasures. And but then depending on what they are, they'll activate different abilities as well. And then these characters that you played, if you still have it, goes onto your crew, and then you have your crew on the thing, and then that's going to be worth different things as well. But you can discard other people's card. Is like this game honestly is quite mean. Like it can be quite mean, which I mean goes with the theme, right? Like your pirates weren't nice, polite people. Um, so it works with the theme. I'm just visualizing this playing with my kids and then having say, okay, great. Well, my oldest is no longer talking to my youngest, and it kind of create a lot of conflict. So, um, it's not one that I intend to add to my collection. Like I said, like the play felt smooth, the mechanism were interesting, but I think that mean element to it would just create too much conflict in my household. So it's not one that I intend to add to my collection. After that, we set up Evan and Hale, and I started teaching it real quick. And this was also happening while we were like running all over the place looking for this creature comforts game. So by the time everybody kind of came back to the table to start playing, I had signed up to play another game, so we ended up leaving. So I was like, hey, well, you guys can play it and I'll leave. But they ended up packing it up and just playing creature comforts, actually. So it got set up and never got played. Um, but this game is so neat. Like you have the main board, and it's one of those where you can go as far ahead as you want, but you can't go backwards. So you're skipping potential moves that you would want to do. And you go ahead, kind of doing these different actions, collecting different tiles that you got to pay for. And then when you pay for them, like it depends on where you put them on your board, because your board is like has a light side and the dark side. The dark side you pay the cost, the light side you pay twice the cost. Now with the dark side, when that board fills around like a village and it activates, you would get money for those things. While on the light side, you actually get to move ahead. And it's really interesting because when you move ahead on your personal board, let me see if we can see that. Kind of like along the side, it's you can't see it very well, but when you move ahead, like you have all these ingredients that you want to kind of move ahead, and you have your brewmaster that you want to move ahead as well. Now wherever at the end of the game the brewmaster ends up, that's how much you're going to multiply by. And then whatever is like the furthest ahead and the furthest behind, like so you want to move everything behind like forward, because even if you're all the way at the front but your one ingredient's really at the bottom, is you use your brewmaster and multiply the score of where you're kind of furthest back ingredient is. So it's one of those games where you don't want to ignore an element of it. You want to make sure you kind of tuck everything along, because that's going to be how you score. It's such a neat game. It's fun. It's I mean, complicated level, I would say. Like it has a certain level of complexity to it, but it's not bad. Is just kind of get used to it. It's a fun game. I definitely recommend playing this one. This one I played at the first time at FallCon 2018, and I ended up buying my own copy after that. Um, and yeah, it's just one that I enjoy. Now, the game I had to leave for that I had signed up to play was A Feast for Odin. I had heard so much things about this one. This makes everybody's top list. It's like the best heavy Euro game that you can play. And so I went, we got it set up, we got playing it. This is a worker placement game, polyomino. Honestly, there's so much different aspect going on in this game. So you're going around, you got your workers and you're kind of assigning them on the different actions you can do. And like if you look at the big board in the middle there's like 50 some actions you can activate. There's a lot that you can do. You got the main player board just on the left of that. Then you got all the different player board. Now on that main player board where you're going to be placing some pieces, there's like negative 50 points or so you start off with. So your score is already at negative 50. So you got to cover some of these stuff up. But also, you want to cover kind of the bottom portion because that's how you're going to build your income, by kind of covering the bottom corner, kind of working your way up. And then the row, like, so there's a few rules with it that you got to match up. And then you can collect boats, you can go whale hunting, you can go raiding, you can do all these different things. The thing is, I found with playing this the first time, there's way more to do that you can do. There's a whole portion of this game we never even looked at, we couldn't get to. Now, everybody at the table, it was all our first time playing it. And we ended up skipping the last round because there's only one round to go. There's not a whole lot I'll be able to accomplish with it. So we're like, okay, well, we'll stop it now. Plus, the auction was starting in the main room. And said, well, do you want to attend the auction? It's like, no, that's fine. We can finish this. Like, oh, you don't have to finish this. I was like, okay. And it was just one of those games. Now, I've heard also with this game is the more you play it, the more proficient you get to it. And if there's a game that you kind of build up your skills with it, and then it's a very complex game that you can slowly become better at it, this is one of those games. Honestly, it left me after I've played this the first time. It's like it felt like it dragged. It was looking at everything, like there was so much we weren't even looking at, we weren't completing. It felt so tight that I was like, I think I'm good. Yeah, I could see that if you play it more and more, you would slowly become better, but it wasn't a game that I was like, oh, wow, I enjoyed that so much. It felt like it was dragging. It felt as long as it was. You'll have some games that, oh, wow, we just played 3 hours. It felt like one. Or like it didn't have that feeling for me, at least maybe because it was the first time and it was such a heavy game, or just so much going on. I don't know. Will I go out of my way to play Feast of Odin again? No. Will I be like, "Okay, I'll never play this one again"? No, it wasn't a bad game. It was just it left me kinda like, "Eh." And I know this is gonna be unpopular opinion here because this is such a well-respected game, and I mean, and I see it. I see the value into it, and it was impressive all that you could do, but it was just like it felt too overwhelming and I guess underwhelming in what you ended up accomplishing, I guess. So my final score was -7. The winner's score was +7. It was tight game, but it was just, yeah, I don't know. We'll have to see if the opportunity comes up again, but this isn't one that I intend to buy. This isn't one that I intend to seek out and try to play again. Um, I'm like for the amount of time that this took, I would have rather have played 4 other medium weight game that I would have kind of had probably more enjoyment out of it. So, all right. And then at GobFest was auction time. And I was playing Feast for Odin, so I didn't catch the whole auction. And maybe that was for the best. I ended up buying a lot, a lot of games. like our table was had just a pile of game on it, and then because it would be like, hey, this one $1, $1, anybody for $1? I was like, well, yeah, for $1. Put my hand up, and then I ended up buying, I want to say 8 games. One of them, one of them was Get Bit Deluxe, and it was, I think I bought that one for $6, and nobody was bidding on it, and I was like, what? Like, Get Bit Deluxe is a good game. Now, I already own it. I don't need it, but it was like, nobody's bidding on Get Bit Deluxe. I bid on it. I ended up winning it at $6. Ashley, who attended with me, ended up buying it from me. But it was like, yeah, there was just a lot of game that I ended up buying. It was just, I mean, and I don't like, the most expensive game I purchased at that auction was for $25. And that was, oh, I'll show you the pile of game there. So that was Heroes of Land, Air, and Sea. This is a massive game by Gameling Game. Honestly, with Gameling, because Gameling Games make the Tiny Epic games, and they're all tiny little games. And one of the complaints that some people have with it is like, well, this is a great game, but does it have to be so small? Did you have to make it so compact? And it's almost like Gameling Games like, oh, really? Let me show you a big game. And then they did Heroes of Land, Air, and Sea. And then it's a massive game. You got tons of miniatures in there, and it looks amazing. But $25, I was like, yeah. So I put my hand up. So anyways, I ended up buying that one. I ended up buying Valletta. I haven't played that one yet. My friend had. She was a good game, so we'll try. I ended up buying Call of Cthulhu, the card game. I have a lot of Cthulhu-themed games. I like them for some reason. I kind of looked into this one. It's a 1 versus 1 card game, and you have these little Cthulhu, like, well, like, they're pretty big. They're like a couple inches tall, and it's like a little plastic Cthulhu mini. And their sole purpose is just to show which domain has been used up already. But it looks so cool. I ended up buying Phase, which I haven't heard a whole lot about it. It looks like this one is like you can phase your card onto the other side, and it's another card game. I haven't ever played it. I ended up buying Tomorrow, and this one just looked cool. But it comes with a little warning on the sides, kind of like, warning, this has mature content where you're trying to depopulize Earth, like kind of get the population of the world under control by creating these biologic weapons. And like, so it's like, hey, this is like a questionable theme that might upset people, so warning. I mean, the game looks great. You open the thing, like, so we'll see. We'll see how I do with that one. I bought Rune Age and a Guardian of Atlantis. So it was all some of the games that I bought in that auction. There was a lot. So after the auction, we ended up playing Nova Luna. I had heard a lot of good things about Nova Luna, and oh my God, am I impressed with this one. So you have the rondelle in the middle, and you have tiles all around, and you kind of go, you have like this thing that goes around, moving. And it's one of those things where you take a tile and you move up to the front, and whoever's in the back is who will go next. So if you only move, and like each tile has a number on it, and that's how many spaces you would move forward. So if you only move a little bit and you're still in the back, then you get to go again. And you're creating this grid with all these tiles, and you're putting things together. And you have all these chips on with your color, these tokens with your color. And the goal is to place these tokens on these circles that's on those tiles, and you do that if you fill it up. So like in this example there, I have that darker blue. That one has a circle with 3 turquoise, we'll call it turquoise, beads on it, basically. And basically, to be able to cover that up, the blue tile has to be touching 3 of those colored tiles. Now, right now it's touching 2. But you can count, if that tile has kind of created a cluster of the same color, you get to count the whole cluster that touches the tile. So if I add another turquoise, either touching one of the turquoise pieces or on the bottom of that blue piece, and I'd be able to cover that circle. And you're creating these things, trying to place everything together to, and the first player to get rid of all their tokens wins the game. So it's kind of a race game, puzzle game. It was super neat. I didn't understand at first about the cluster things, that you could create clusters that would still count towards what's around the tile. So I kind of probably set some stuff up that was a little bit less advantageous because of that. But this one is so cool. This is on my wish list. I want this game now. It looks pretty. You got all these bright colored tiles going around this rondelle. Like it's a good game. And then we ended up playing Get Bit that we bought while we were at that auction. And Get Bit's hilarious. So everybody's got a card that goes from like 1 to 7, I think it is. And depending on the number of players, you'll discard some of the numbers. And then you all have those cards, and then you're going to take turn playing a card face down. And then you have all your characters. Everybody's got like a little, it's a robot that's swimming, and we're all in a row. And at the end, you have this little shark. And then you'll play a card, and then going from the lowest numbered card, you'll move that player's robot to the front of the line. But if anybody has played the same number, those robot will not move at all. Those cards are discarded. Like, well, all the cards will be discarded. So, like, maybe we played 1, 2, 2, and 3. So 1 would move to the front of the line. Now the 2 twos eliminate each other. Those don't move. And then the 3 would move at the front of the line. So whichever of the 2 was behind or furthest behind, that one will be at the back of the line. The shark comes, bites off a limb, and then that character kind of freaks out and goes to the front of the line with the missing limb. And then you do it again. And you keep doing this until you're eliminated, and last player swimming is the winner. It's so silly. It's such a simple game, but it's neat. It's interesting, and it's a lot of fun. So that's Get Bit. Then after Get Bit, I had signed up to go play Gaia Project. I played Terra Mystica not too long ago, and I had purchased Terra Mystica, which is the reason why I had signed up for this one, because I've heard they're similar games. And I was like, well, that might help me learn Terra Mystica. But I ended up playing Terra Mystica before anyway. So then I was like, okay, well, good. Then I'm ready to play Gaia Project. And honestly, they are very, very similar games. It's basically the same game with a different skin on it. So Terra Mystica is more fantasy, map building, while Gaia Project is space theme. There's a few minor difference with the Gaia Project. So mainly the board. You have the planets on the board, and that's all modular, so you can change it up, and it would change every time. But other than that, it's pretty much the same. I did a lot better at Terra Mystica, though, I gotta say. And this one, like some of the people we played with had played a lot. We all have different factions. One of the things that had changed with this game is you had green planets and purple planets, and you could kind of change the purple planet to become green planets. And then when it became a green planet, you could like kind of build on them, but it was kind of awkward. I never ended up doing anything with the green and the purple planet. Also, with my abilities, I got to kind of make money fairly easily, and I got to exchange money for things. But I never acquired the ability to travel further, because with this one, I found, yeah, you got the clusters of planets, but you've got very small clusters of planets. And to spread out to like the other planets, like you had to build your warp core, like, or your travel ability, so that you could reach further. And I was never really able to do that until quite a bit later. So I hadn't built a whole lot on the board. And I was kind of clustered in this one tiny area. But it was a lot of fun. This is another game that probably we played at for at least 3 hours. But it blinked, like it was so quick. We didn't even notice the time was passing, because it's such an enjoyable, neat game. And then you have like your magic purple tokens at the top, where you can kind of upgrade. Now there's the green area in those. I've never used that either. I'm not sure how that worked out. The one player I had with that was part of her special ability, so she ended up using those quite a bit more. But it's neat because you got your board, you got all the pieces that you can play. When you play them on the board, it reveals things underneath. The more things that are revealed underneath give you more access. Now, the guy that was playing ahead of me, at the end of the game when we're cleaning up, we found a few pieces of his on the floor. So he's like, what are those doing there? So he had stuff that was revealed that probably shouldn't have been revealed. So he ended up collecting probably a little bit more than he. Is that going to make a difference? Probably not that much in the grand scheme of things, but it was just like, whoops, I guess you really got to manage your pieces. I did terrible at this one. I think I ended up with 61 points. But the whole time you're playing, it doesn't feel like, wow, I'm doing so terrible. Like, you feel like you're productive. Oh, I've got to accomplish this. I've got to do this. This is looking good. It's just, it was not as good as everybody else. And then the guy that won ended up getting 165, and he lapped me on the scoreboard. So he was doing quite a bit better. Um, but yeah, no, this one is a neat game. If you have Terra Mystica, you don't need Gaia Project, in my opinion. If you have Gaia Project, you don't need to buy Terra Mystica. They're just so similar. I already own Terra Mystica. I'm like that theme a little bit better. I think I was more comfortable with the map. The way that you could spread on that one was a little bit less restrictive. So I'm going to stick with that one. But yeah, this was great. And that was the last game we played on the day 2 at GobFest. So if you want to follow me, my Instagram is boardgame_mama. On Facebook, it's Board Game Mama and friends are playing all the games. I also have a podcast that I do with my friend Carla called The Board Game Specialist. So make sure to give that a listen. And then on YouTube, my channel is Board Game Mama. So be sure to stay tuned to catch the last day of GobFest. So bye, everybody.